Welcome back to the 2026 APAICS Energy and Commerce Summit. I'm Tanya Layden, Vice President of Development and External Affairs. Our final panel of today's summit is Building Next Generation Businesses. Businesses are driving major advancements in domestic manufacturing, supply chain resilience, and logistics, while also further incorporating sustainability and clean energy innovations. This panel will bring together industry leaders to examine the current business landscape, explore emerging and next-generation trends, and discuss opportunities to expand our community's representation and engagement across industries. To introduce our panel, please welcome Senator Andy Kim, representing the state of New Jersey. Senator Kim currently sits on the committees on Banking, Housing and Urban Affairs, Commerce, Science and Transportation, Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. Please join me in welcoming Senator Kim.
Hi, everyone. Senator Andy Kim here. It's my honor to be with you today to preview the next panel, Building Next Generation Businesses. American businesses are driving major advancements like domestic manufacturing, supply chain resilience, and logistics, while also further incorporating sustainability and clean energy innovations. Supporting American businesses in the larger business ecosystem is so important as we look to build opportunity and resilience for Americans, as well as to compete on the global stage. And in doing so, we must remember that economic security, as well as resource and energy security, is national security. And that's why I put forward a resilience-focused foreign policy agenda that prioritizes these principles and updates our alliances with other countries to be organized not just around our defense relationships or geography, but also the economic and technological relationships that will power the future global economy. For instance, I introduced a Partnership for Indo-Pacific Industrial Resilience Authorization Act to establish a security cooperation initiative and help strengthen alliances and partnerships in the Indo-Pacific region that are critical to America's continued economic prosperity and security. And when it comes to strengthening America's competitiveness, I introduced the Match Act to level the global playing field for U.S. tech and legislation to strengthen our ability to compete for and win nuclear energy projects around the world. In addition to this global view, we must also look at ways to support emerging businesses here at home, including AA and HPI businesses. That means supporting small businesses and startups, investing in workforce development, healthcare, and even housing affordability, and putting an emphasis on advancing sustainability and clean energy innovations in the business sector. In New Jersey, I'm focused on building what I call the Einstein Corridor because I believe that my home state can be a leader in technology and innovation and the number one place to invest in whether as a startup, established business, or family. To help achieve this, I've introduced legislation to support AI innovation in financial services and legislation to retain our competitive edge in quantum technology. Its commitment and investment across sectors, including government, academia, business, and finance, that's going to foster an environment of success for new businesses, making them competitive on the global stage and creating opportunities for workers and families here at home. I hope you have an engaging and enriching discussion during this upcoming panel. Please don't hesitate to stay in touch, and I look forward to working with many of you going forward into the future. Thank you.
With that, I will now turn it over to the moderator for this panel, Brian Cheung. Brian is a business and data correspondent at NBC News. He covers economy and finance across NBC's broadcasts, including The Today Show, NBC Nightly News, and MSNBC, as well as on NBC's digital platforms. Please welcome Brian and our panelists.
Well, hey there, everyone. My name is Brian Cheung. I'm a business and data correspondent at NBC News. And this panel is called Building Next Generation Businesses. As we know right now, This is an enormously busy time for businesses. There's a lot of things on their mind, from tariffs to what's happening abroad to domestic manufacturing to artificial intelligence. There's a lot happening that's weighing on the minds of entrepreneurs, CEOs for companies big and small. And how businesses navigate this specific time right now is going to be so impactful for the AANHPI communities that they serve, whether you are the owner of that business or you're just someone who's a customer of that business. And so this panel is going to focus on the issues that are facing the business community. What's working, what's not working? Is there anything from a policy perspective that we need to be thinking about? And all of that is going to be within the lens of how that impacts the very critical AANHPI community. And so before we start this panel and intro, I just kind of want to lay out a few stats because I am the data correspondent here at NBC. We're going to talk about the labor force, and labor force participation among Asians is almost 5 points higher than the national average. That's 66% versus roughly 61.5% for the national average. We know that Asian median earnings are higher, but it's more complicated than that because AAPI data shows that there's a big disparity within the Asian subgroups. So the percentage of low-wage earners is closer to 13 to 16% for Taiwanese and Asian Indian, whereas with Marshallese and other Micronesian workers, you have rates that are closer to 50%. There's also a lot of turnover happening right now with automation and AI. There's a lot of concern about job prospects that might not be there if, God forbid, you lose your job. Half of AAPI adults expressed a lack of confidence in being able to find another job if they lost theirs. That coming from an AP NORC poll. On the business environment of things, there was an interesting QuickBooks poll that said Asian American owners, entrepreneurs, they lead other groups on buying local, keeping the money flowing within the community. But there's also the aspect of financial risk. When you talk about personal credit, in many cases, these Asian entrepreneurs are putting up their own money, their own capital to put up their business. And Asian American owners in that same QuickBooks poll reported the highest levels of that exposure at 58% compared to other groups. And so it's a really interesting microcosm that the AANHPI community find itself in. And again, there's a lot of issues around this that I think might address the labor force and the business environment within the context of everything that I just laid out. So let's introduce our expert panel here. We have Mario Salazar, who is a principal of public policy at Amazon, where he leads state competition and policy. And he was formerly executive director of public policy at Comcast NBC Universal, a former colleague of mine, where he focused on competition policy and regulatory issues. Also joining us on this panel is Tong, who is the CEO and president of National Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship. If that's a mouthful, you can also refer to them as National ACE. National ACE works with more than 130 affiliate chambers and partner organizations representing a total of 3 million AAPI and all the small business owners and entrepreneurs nationwide in that group. Chiling also held senior leadership roles at the U.S. Department of Commerce and is an expert in all things federal policy. So I did a lot of scene setting there, and now I want to open it up to our expert panel here. And I want to start off with Chiling, because I feel like you have a really good grasp, a really good understanding of what the picture looks like nationally for AANHPI small businesses. What are they talking about? What are you hearing about in the summer of 2026 for them?
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. I really appreciate you willing to moderate this panel. We know how busy you are, and I always admire your accomplishments and your business and finance expertise. So, and also, I really, appreciate that our National ACE board member, Mary, is here with us. Thank you so much, Brian. My name is Chiling Tong, as Brian said, President CEO of National ACE. We represent 3 million HPI business and entrepreneurs nationwide. And also, we are supporting a community that employ over 5 million people, and our community contribute about $1.8 trillion in purchasing power to the U.S. economy. Our mission is very simple, helping entrepreneurs start, grow, and succeed. Talking about what's happening in Washington, D.C., because sometimes people feel this country is kind of divided, but for us, we have seen tremendous opportunities. And especially when we work with 150 affiliate chambers and partners right now, we just feel it is so exciting. In May, we celebrate together for AAPI Heritage Month, Small Business Month, and also 250 years Americans anniversaries. Because we have why we can work with both Republican and Democrats, because for us, we only have one focus. We are promoting small businesses. So for our chamber, we focus on three key areas: programs for business and economic development, local business and community engagement, and advocacy. I really appreciate, Brian, you're talking about buying local. Local. It is so important that we are able to empower our 150 affiliate chambers and partner. And the most importantly, we have a next gen, which is support over 3,400 young entrepreneurs across 11 chapters. And finally, advocacy is so important in Washington, D.C. We want to ensure small business voice are heard on all kind of issues, such as AI, energy, tax, workforce, technology, international commerce, and access to capital. For example, energy policy is a very example of why this work matters. Affordable and reliable energy is not just an infrastructure issue, it is a small business issue. Whether someone runs a restaurant, retail shop, or technology startup, energy costs affect their bottom line every day. Especially for AI, data center is so critical, so energy definitely will be a very important issue moving forward.
And so that's a great outline. By the way, I'm sorry I said 130 instead of 150. I didn't realize
We
that.
just bumped it to 150. You were right.
Okay, all right. So I wasn't completely wrong on that one, but we're going to have to revise
Yes,
that number.
thank you
Maybe
for
it'll be
that.
even higher next year. But you outlined so many really great points about access to capital, about energy, and we'll go there later. But I kind of want to get Mario in the conversation here because Amazon is obviously a massive company, a large business, I think needless to say, but also you work with so many small businesses that sell on Amazon as well. So obviously you have a really great perspective on the things that they're talking about, the questions that they might have with regards to the operating environment these days. What are you hearing? What are some of the hot button topics that are kind of weighing on you in this day and age?
Yeah, Brian, thank you so much. And again, first and foremost, thank you to APAICS for the invitation to be here today. Chiling, National ACE, is great to see you all on here. And very excited to talk about this issue. Brian, so you mentioned at the top a lot of the challenges the new businesses face, starting up, collecting capital, getting the infrastructure that they need to succeed. Now at Amazon, we can say that we've removed a lot of the barriers that once kept small and medium-sized businesses from competing at scale. We've built a store where anyone with a great idea can reach hundreds of millions of customers on day one with access to the same world-class logistics, data-driven marketing tools, AI-empowered capabilities that were once reserved only for the largest and most well-funded corporations. At Amazon today, 60% of everything that we sell at our store comes from independent sellers, most of which are small and medium-sized businesses. In 2025, these sellers employed more than 2 million Americans. I'm kind of talking about the workforce piece. Some additional stats from these sellers. $375,000 was the average annual sales per independent seller in 2025. Over 75,000 sellers in our store surpassed $1 million in sales that year. We have over 11,000 U.S. sellers that grew their sales more than 10x. They've sold more than 4.6 billion items and have collected over $1 billion in financing secured through Amazon lending. We're very proud of the way that we enable these companies to have access to tools, once again, that were once reserved only for the largest companies. And we're happy to share that, and we're happy to help empower and equip these folks.
And, Mario, you had some really fascinating stats there about just how many independent sellers and how a lot of them are doing well. They employ a lot of people. Is there anything specific about the ANHPI community that you've seen within your Amazon data that tells you about the unique ways in which that community is engaging on the platform and with Amazon?
Yes, I think the biggest challenge for APIs, especially those that work for small and medium-sized businesses, is competing against established brands with massive resources, right? I think that goes for most sellers for most small and medium-sized businesses in the field. Historically, if you were a two-person operation, you faced three structural disadvantages, right? The first of these was logistics. You couldn't offer fast, free shipping to compete with the big brands. The second was marketing. It was hard for you to run sophisticated campaigns that included data-driven promotions tools, that included the ability to create ads, video, and photographs on the spot, again, without a massive marketing budget, and visibility. You weren't able to compete against big, well-funded incumbents. Now, for the AAPI community, especially folks in our space, those barriers can be compounded, right? Access to capital, access to networks, underrepresentation in industries where founders from our community have historically been overlooked. The playing field wasn't always level. And the fact that we can provide these tools to AA, NH, and PI entrepreneurs is evening the playing field in a very effective way.
And Chiling, I mean, Mario talks about the playing field, right? I think that when you engage the small businesses that National ACE works with on a daily basis, I imagine they probably tell you a lot about, I'm trying to compete against the big companies, or I'm trying to compete against the other business that's down the street. I mean, what are you hearing from them about things that National ACE can help with in terms of leveling that playing field? I know you mentioned access to capital. I know you mentioned energy. It might be different answers for different types of issues, but broadly speaking, how are they kind of presenting the playing field to you?
Oh, thank you for that, Brian. Thank you very much for emphasizing small business. If we want to talk about the opportunities, we probably need to talk about challenges too. Because when we talk about manufacturing, supply chain, tariffs, and modernizing the electrical grid, those issues may sound broad, but for small business, they are very, very personal. A delayed shipment, higher utility bill, or certain policy change can affect whether a business can make a payroll, hire a coworker, or stay open. Our research showed that 53% of ANHPI owned business are family or first generation owned, and 77% have 4 or fewer employees. So this business often do not have a large finance, legal, or operation teams that absorb disruptions. And because this panel is a commerce and energy panel, so I always want to bring energy into the topic. Energy costs are a growing concern, especially for native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities. Because of a geographic isolation and resilient on important petroleum, electricity costs in Hawaii are often 2 or 3 times higher than the national average. So this is why we support a balanced energy strategy that includes renewable, natural gas, and other reliable energy source. So small businesses need affordable, dependable power to compete and grow. So talking about from in Washington, D.C., regulatory uncertainty also creates challenges. Trade policy, tariffs, and changing regulations can add a real cost. So when people see the policy change in newspaper, but it will be affect small business immediately. Even we go back during the pandemic, the people, for example, one of our Filipino owner, Yaga, who owns a restaurant in Columbus, Ohio, she struggled just try to create a source ingredient while facing inflation and raising operation cost. So story like her all over the place. Even now, people do not see, but the policy decision definitely affect our community.
I mean, I actually hear similar stories in my reporting. And right now we are in this time where energy costs are high because of the war with Iran. And that increases fuel costs, where anyone shipping anything is going to have to face higher costs and higher fees because higher jet fuel costs, diesel for the trucks that move things around the country. Fertilizer costs might be up for people that are, working with agricultural products. And so, this is all layered on top of what was already a pretty volatile year last year with tariffs and uncertainty over how much you would be paying if you try to import something, which I would imagine for AANHPI businesses is a bigger burden because you might be working with things that you can only source from abroad. Chiling, I mean, how do you engage federal regulators or the federal government on some of these matters? I mean, you've highlighted some of the challenges that these businesses are facing. How do you present those problems to the people that you talk to in DC and say like, hey, is there any way that we can get some relief on this?
Yeah, we think advocacy is very, very important, but also must be paired with practical support. So talking about advocacy part, in May, we have a White House briefing. We engage about 90, almost 90 small business owners to talk with the White House. We were there. We want to, like policymakers to know the challenges, opportunities they are facing. And then next day, we went to Capitol Hill, and I were able to meet with both Republican and Democrats, about 40 congressional offices. And we met about at least 20 members of Congress. So as I mentioned, they just talking about the, very practical way what they're dealing with. And the interesting is one of the member of Congress, he did not have an opportunity to engage with small business owners. So they're really, welcome this kind of comments for them, and then they're able to speak or advocate for us small business. And also, I really want to shout out Amazon because Amazon has been very care about small business owners. Even for our Capitol Hill, we were able to have a breakfast, and they hosted our breakfast. And also, last month, we went to Seattle. We engaged about 90 small business owners in Seattle at the Amazon headquarters. So we're able to have a member of Congress, state and local officials to come to hear the concerns and issues from small business owners. And then they'll be able to, we'll be able to compile our policy report and submit to the White House and congressional leaders in the future. But in the meantime, they all share their resources and programs to the small business owners. So among all the things, there are so many important issues. But I have to tell you, access to capital remains one of the biggest challenges for small business owners.
And before we go there, I mean, Mario, you got a shout out there. Tell us about why Amazon needs to work with National ACE and do all of this. I mean, obviously, you're working directly with businesses in terms of logistics for people to put marketplaces online, but why is like advocacy also important? I mean, you work in the policy space. I'm sure you are also able to advocate for some of these businesses as well.
Yeah, so Brian, so my work essentially focuses on ensuring that the policies and programs that help these businesses succeed stay intact. What I'm most passionate about is how Amazon has removed the barriers, again, that once kept small businesses from competing at scale. And we've built a store where anyone with a great idea can reach their customers on day one. And I could expand on that a little bit. I know that we've talked a little bit about access to capital. We've talked a little bit about having to build infrastructure. And at Amazon, we do that in several ways. The first of which is fulfillment by Amazon, which is logistics equity for small business is what that equates to. Through fulfillment by Amazon, any small business can offer the same fast, free prime shipping as the biggest brands in the world on day one. Fulfillment by Amazon also handles storage, packing, shipping, returns, and customer service. Again, diminishing the need for large-scale capital because that's something that we provide for them. In addition to that, the Partner Carrier Program saves sellers up to 25% on domestic freight, kind of going back to the expense there that you all just touched on. And our multi-channel fulfillment drives about 19% in sales increase after adoption. So a lot of that is really the tools that we provide are the reasons why we love working with folks like National ACE and all the members that they represent. Going back to marketing and the need to segment the marketplace, right? If you sell a product, you want to make sure that that product is getting in front of the right people. And one of the best ways to do that is by offering promotions and data-driven discounts to people who could potentially be, or consumers who could potentially be your most loyal customers. And the way that we do that is through a program called Brand Tailored Promotions, which is essentially Fortune 500 marketing for everybody, for any seller in our store. We built a tool that gives small brands the same sophisticated, data-driven consumer targeting that used to be exclusive to only billion-dollar companies at no cost. We offer 16 different audience types, including cart abandoners, repeat customers, lapsed customers, seller tracking, again, as a way for these folks to reach their customers. And these are tools that weren't always available, right? If you were starting a company and wanted to sell dongles, it would be very hard to do that without tools like this made available to sellers. So, yeah, again, we're proud of the work that we do with National ACE because a lot of their members are a lot of the same people that take advantage of these tools in our store.
And it's funny, I mean, you mentioned that's a form of capital, even though I think when people think about access to capital, maybe the stereotype or the traditional way of getting capital is getting a bank loan or getting fundraising somewhere. Whereas, like, Amazon isn't necessarily doing that, but it's providing capital in the sense that you're providing the logistics, which would free up a company that has, concerns about getting access to capital. It lowers the cost for them to do that. Is that kind of the right way to think about it? Like, it's access to capital in the modern age is actually a form of logistics as opposed to just like a straight up bank loan.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's enablement, right? It's enabling these folks to have access to these tools so they can succeed, enabling success in many ways. And again, we're proud of the way that we do that for small and medium-sized businesses.
And so, Chiling, I mean, you mentioned access to capital is so important. I mean, are you thinking about the traditional bank loan? I mean, interest rates are high right now. Small businesses might not have access to the same types of financial tools in the same markets that larger businesses have. It's not like if you're a small business with only 4 employees, you could just issue commercial paper. Like, what is it about, some of these small businesses that you're hearing about in with regards to growing and getting capital that they need to make that growth possible?
Yeah, thank you for that, Brian. I really like all the statistic. You have mentioned in the beginning, and also, through your report, you always give us very, very good, picture of what's going on here. We also have done different kind of surveys. About 60% of AAPI, AHPI small business say inconsistent cash flow is their top obstacle to grow, while 44% say access to financing remains a challenge. So we work with all the different kind of different company, all the bank, Wells Fargo Bank, Bank of America, JP Morgan, and US Bank, and all of them. And also we work with Fitch Tech, like Ernie. We always use different way to help our small business to find, how they can get access to capital. We do have accelerate program. So for accelerate program, we very focused on access to capital, and even ourselves since 2021, we have distributed more than $10 million in direct grants to help small business recover, expand, and invest in their future, especially through the AAPI Strong Restaurant Fund with Grubhub. So we are having this educational seminar, accelerate program, and just explore all the activities, with them. Well, during the COVID, we have been, receive a grant from Department of Commerce. So we have developed a business and innovation center that all the small business owners, if they want to find out how they want to get a different form of capital, we're able to have a consultant to help them. And we continue doing that since last year. We have helping a small business owner got about $6 to $8 million, about 1,300 business. So we always thinking about different way to help them to have access to capital.
Why is that so important specifically for the AA and HPI communities? Because that stat that I offered in the beginning was really staggering to me that, more than any group, Asian American owners put up the most of their own capital to start the business. They have the most skin on their back in the business such that if something goes wrong, they are totally on the hook. Is it that they're not aware of other forms of capital? Is it a traditional thing where, in certain cultures, it's just like if you want to start a business, you got to do it yourself? Like, why is that so important with regards to this community?
Yeah, I think this actually is not only ANHPI, it's a universal issues. When I had a chance to talk with MMSDC, National Supply Development Council President Don Cravens, and I have a chance to talk with the president of U.S. Hispanic Chamber, Romero, and also Ron Busby, U.S. Black Chamber, they all deal with the same issue, access to capital. At that time, we talked about access to capital, access to education. Right now, it's access to AI, and access to contracting opportunities. But among all the issues, access to capital is really number one. for AAHPI, they a lot of time they just borrow money from their family, from their relatives. They just don't feel comfortable. Even outreach to SBA or other. I tell you, even during the COVID, that PPE loan, they just cannot. Probably 60% of our AAPS small business do not know how to utilize that loan, forgiven loan. So I just feel we really need to let them engage to understand the policy, the programs that all the government, all the corporation, or other provided. Then they can utilize that in the future. I just feel they are really lack of access to of all the resources.
And Mario, I feel were you about to jump in? Looked like you were. Okay, so well,
we're
actually,
talking about AI, so I don't know if you want me to jump in and talk about how.
yeah. Well, I mean, but AI, I do want to ask about that, and I kind of want to weave it in because, like, I think Chilling, your point is that sometimes it's just people aren't aware of grant options that
Right.
they might have out there, or how certain loan programs that are offered by the federal government are available. With AI, these are tools that if you are maybe a first generation business owner, you just immigrated here, you just don't even know what tools are available to you. Like, how is Amazon, which is a massive logistics company, like educating small businesses using the platform and like, hey, here's all the things that we offer that you may not have even thought about?
Yeah, no, look, we're super proactive about enabling these AI tools for the different sellers on our platform. In our view, AI doesn't replace sellers; it gives them superpowers, right? And there are so many different ways that that sellers in our store are able to utilize AI for their business. First of which is Seller Assistant, which has over 230,000 monthly users. The Seller Assistant tool offers personalized insights and actions, and we found that sellers in the store accept recommendations 90% of the time. In addition to that, we have a generative AI listing tool. Before this tool was made available, it cut listing creation time from about 30 to 45 minutes to under 5 minutes, and it has since created over 12 million listings since 2025. And I'm talking about capital and access to capital. Time in many ways is money too, right? And the fact that we can make these folks more efficient with that time, I think, says a lot. The Creative Studio tool is another one. I mentioned a little bit earlier about how the tools we provide to our sellers allow them to compete with much larger companies. One of the ways we do that is through a tool called Creative Studio, where we're able to use AI to create professional level images and videos from a single photo, from a single product photo, right? So we're able to create ads and content that that they can use for marketing that once cost a whole lot more money hiring a marketing firm and a creative team to produce. We can do that now with AI very, very quickly. And folks don't have to use their capital on something like that. They can use it on something else, right? The Product Opportunity Explorer is another tool which surfaces unmet customer demand so sellers can find their next product. And in addition to that, there's 20 other AI-empowered fulfillment by Amazon tools that we've launched in 2025, including AI packaging recommendations and the like. A real-world example is one product we like talking about is the Gen Y Hitch AI, and it helped multiply one employee's productivity by 20x, enabling them to have international expansion. So, we're very proud of the tools we offer to these folks. We're very proactive in pushing these tools to sellers in our store and making sure that they're utilizing them to be more efficient than before.
And Chilling, how do you think about obviously Amazon's role and like other companies' roles, large or small, in the ecosystem of supporting these businesses? I mean, employment, right? We talked a lot about the labor market. Like, it is so critical to make sure that these small businesses have the operating space to support all those people that they have on their payroll.
Yeah, absolutely. AI is creating new opportunities for entrepreneurs. I really appreciate, Maria talking about Amazon AI does not replace sellers. Well, many people worry about AI replacing jobs, and actually, many small business owners see AI as a tool to become more competitive. Just as Mario described, what happened within Amazon, it's happening all over the world, especially for small business owner. For business with 2 or 3 employees, AI can help with scheduling, marketing, bookkeeping, customer communications. and especially administrative tasks. That allow entrepreneurs to spend more time serving customer and growing their business, and probably even spend time with their family. We have done research, and our research showed that 36% of ANHPI small business are already using AI, and 90% of those exploring AI are excited about its potential. I just give you one example. We have a small business owner, Patrick Chen K. Chin, who operate General Tao's restaurant and catering. Now, because he using tools like a ChatGPT and cloud to streamline contract and also internal operations. Tasks that once took hours or days can now be complete much faster, as Marian mentioned, 20 plus. So for our next gen, this young entrepreneur, they are building business across technology, finance, restaurant, retail, healthcare, and professional service. They are very innovative. They are globally connected, and they're ready to lead. And because the technology, globally connect becomes so easy. And as AI expands, reliable energy infrastructure will become even more important, as we mentioned about the data center. So entrepreneurs who understand both technology and energy management will be better positioned to compete in the future.
And Mario, when you hear that stat, 36% of businesses are using AI. Is that a stat you'd like to see be higher?
Yeah. I mean, I think eventually we want everyone to take advantage of these tools, right? And if for one moment, I'll take off my Amazon hat and put on my University of Alabama hat, because right now I'm working on a PhD there. Working on a PhD very, very part-time.
Casual drop.
Casual drop. But my dissertation will eventually, I hope, be on the adoption of generative AI tools, right? And one of the leading theories in technology, Brian, you asked a little bit earlier about how folks, how we get folks to adopt AI, right? How we get folks to really utilize and lean into these tools. One of the legacy theories that takes a look at the adoption of technology is the technology acceptance model. It was promulgated by Fred Davis. He was a professor at the University of Michigan. It's an older theory. It's from 1989, but he took a look at the spread of word processors in an office. And what he essentially found, and again, this is just academic speak, grandiose theories for a pretty simple model. There are two driving factors that push adoption of technology: perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. Right. So if it can be proven that these tools are useful or are perceived to be useful, and if they're easy to use, that is one of the main drivers that modifies the attitude towards using that technology. So I think that that's really incumbent on folks like us to ensure that that sellers are trained. That actually, taking a step back, that they're aware that these tools exist. We make them available to them. We have more and more folks using these tools. A lot of the stats that I've discussed on our AI tools are from 2025. Right, we're 7 months into 2026. So I think that we have a ways to go to get that 36% up. But I think as more sellers notice the usefulness and the perceived ease of use of these tools, we'll see that number go up more and more, and folks will be more efficient and more streamlined than ever before.
I mean, you mentioned that's a great academic breakdown, but perceived is such a key operating word there, right? Perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. And, Amazon, as a company that maybe was working with the business that's, selling a product on the website, it's almost incumbent on Amazon to help them shape their perception of this tool that they can use for the images that they will post of the product. This looks really intimidating, or I don't really know how this works, or I didn't even know this tool exists. And do you hear apprehension, maybe even specifically among ANHPI, sellers of oh, I don't really know how this works, so I'm just going to not even worry about it and just skip it. And that's maybe how they miss the boat.
Oh, I think that's why we have to maintain strong relationships with folks like National ACE, or get in front of these people, have conversations with these folks, and make sure that they're aware of them, and make them widely available, which we do. So, I think we'll get there eventually. I think it's definitely a very interesting time to be in right now with this nascent technology, but it's pretty cool having a front seat.
And Chilling, I mean, I wonder if that stat about the 36% of businesses using AI, like, do you see among businesses of any size, like an apprehension about the technology? There are some real concerns about the labor market impact. And I know that you kind of walked through how it's already providing like serious productivity advantages for the businesses that you cited as an example. But like, I think people have real concerns too about displacement and about, how this could be the biggest, earth shaker in modern history. No big deal.
Yeah, AI, it is so critical. AI is changing everything. I was invited to speak at Aspen Ideas Festival 2 weeks ago, and every single panel is talking about AI. Different kind of statistic, different of the practical way, every single one. And we had our roundtable at TikTok 2 weeks ago, and a lot of small business owners tell me, "Oh, we have an AI company." And everybody say, what they are doing, what they're planning to do. So it's just you have to talk about AI. It doesn't matter what kind of panel, you have to talk about AI. So we have our a conference coming in Houston, September 18th. Oh, I just talked to our staff and say, every single panel, you have to add AI because that's the only thing they are very interested. People are interested. They are eager to know. They want to know what they can learn. But however, AI cannot replace human being. We just feel it is so critical that we still have a support to our small business, either immediate support or long-term investment. We are trying to have a different accelerate program to share with them. We talk with policymakers. Is there any policy that can help small business to learn about AI? And so those policymakers, they are trying to explore that too. But, we still need to focus on human being. It's just like when we talk with young entrepreneurs, we just say no matter how technology advance, no matter how we engage with AI, you have to still develop your leadership skills, which is communication skill to communicate with people and the face-to-face, don't let technology take away your human part.
Chilling, what is the biggest thing facing the AANHPI labor force these days? Again, they have a higher participation rate than the national average, but what's the biggest thing that they're facing? Understanding that, given everything that we talked about, it's these businesses that are employing them.
Well, for labor force part, I think that for AHPI, it really, we can talk hours about labor force. For NNHPI, if we talk about corporations, we still feel that within the corporations, we really want to push AHPI to the C-suite. We want to see more people like a Mario, the position within big corporation. We feel that is still very challenging for us. And we communicate with CEO of the Fortune 500 companies. We really feel, AHPI, have a great accomplishment, but they still very underrepresented in different kind of way. If you talk about law firm, how many partners we have. If we talk about education, how many president we have within the university. So all this kind of thing, there are so many issues we can talk about labor force, but we still feel the leadership within any kind of institute, corporations, or even federal agency are very, very critical for us.
Mario, does that map with kind of what you see, given that stat that you provided in 2025, 2 million employees supported by the small businesses selling on Amazon? I imagine a lot of them from this community.
Yeah, for sure, and we're very proud of the fact that we're national or international company. We sell to all communities, even those with high A and HPI community concentrations, right? And if I could say one thing on sort of the AI and jobs front, AI is empowered, like I mentioned earlier. AI is empowering small business owners to do more, be more efficient, grow faster, and create jobs in their communities, right? When a single entrepreneur can now manage hundreds of products, expand globally, and build a professional brand, do these things that once required entire teams, they grow and they hire. And that's a story that I see playing out with AI, and expanding in that way.
I forgot to mention about when we talk about workforce, we feel it is also important for small business. I think for small business, they require policy that help them attract, retain talent, build a skilled workforce, and provide flexible benefits, and address the unique needs of diverse business community beside the corporations I had mentioned before.
I mean, that gets at skilling, right? I mean, especially in an AI future, being equipped with how to use AI is a huge factor in your employability as you're looking for jobs out there. And so, is that kind of something that you're engaging the federal government on? Like, would you like to see the federal government do more on, reskilling resources?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you look at AANHPI community, we are the largest consumer of technology product. So for us, technology is not a strange thing, especially for young generation. We have been working closely with different, organizations like International Leadership Foundation. They are providing internship for college students to do more, engagement with different federal agency, congressional offices, and also APEX. APEX done amazing job to promote young people, give them 1 year long, experience to work for the congressional offices. For us, when we work with different educational institute, we think STEM is important: science, technology, engineer, arts, and math. That will able to prepare workforce and supply chain ready for the rapidly growth and for each sector. We feel strengthened skills in each area create opportunity for small business to innovate and participate as a supplier in cutting edge and high growth industries.
And in our final minutes here, I want to ask each of you, how can we make sure that our community, the AANHPI community, is not left behind?
Chiling,
So we'll have a Mario to start.
Go for it, Mario.
Yeah, man. Look, I think the first is awareness, right? Making sure that AA and HPI entrepreneurs know that these tools exist. We've talked about that at length here today, just making sure that they're aware, and that's why events like this matter, right? And why I'm proud to serve on the APAICS board. Is why I'm proud to serve on the National ACE board, because we need to get the word out that these resources are available and free to use. I think second is lowering the barrier to entry, right? AI is a great equalizer. When you can create a professional product listing in under 5 minutes, when you can create marketing creative from a single photo, when you can get personalized business insights delivered to you daily, you don't need a big team and you don't need a big budget to compete. You just need a great idea. And we're proud that we're able to enable that. And third is representation, right? Over 60%, like I mentioned, several times here today, over 60% of the sales in our store come from independent sellers. 4.6 billion items sold last year, over 8,900 per minute. Our community is already part of that story. The goal is to make sure that we're an even bigger part of it and that the next generation sees entrepreneurship as a viable, supported path. And when you lower that barrier and when you allow these tools to be made available to folks, entrepreneurship becomes a much less scary thing. And happy to work with National ACE, APACS, and many other stakeholders on ensuring that this continues.
Yes, I think to make sure our community is not left behind, we need both immediate support and long-term investment, not only from the mainstream, from the policymaker, from big corporation, and also I think we need to support each other. So I really appreciate the Apex work, and especially every May we have like our AHPI prom, the big gala to bring everybody together. It's just so important that we still need to, help them to access to capital, technical assistance, resources that help business manage its supply chain disruption, inflation, and raising energy cost. For long-term investment means prepare the next generation of entrepreneurs. So for us, we have 11 chapter of a next gen, and we are really focused on their development. We still need to communicate with the White House, the congressional leaders, and federal agencies. I think those conversations really turn real business experience into better public policy, from expanding federal procurement opportunities to strengthen, lending programs, improving access to capital. I think we want to make sure our community is not left behind by supporting business today and prepare leaders for tomorrow. Strengthen local chambers and advocate for policy that helps small business innovate, compete, and thrive. When we do all things together, I believe the future is bright for HPI entrepreneurs and for America's economy.
Well, I think that's a really wonderful place for us to end at, but a really fascinating conversation with a lot of food for thought, I'm sure, for everyone out there watching. But Chiling Tong with National ACE, as well as Mario Salazar with Amazon, thank you so much for this fascinating and wonderful conversation. Thanks to APAICS for having us, and we'll leave it there. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you all for a fantastic day of learning and discussion. We've had such valuable insights into the current energy landscape, mobility and transportation access, green workforce development, as well as building next generation businesses. Once again, I want to thank our incredible summit partners, Exelon, League of Conservation Voters, Microsoft, PG&E, Pepsi, Uber, Walmart, and the Wan Sheng Foundation, as well as our speakers, panelists, and moderators for their time and dedication. Please make sure to visit www.apaics.org to learn more about our work. Thank you all for being a part of this year's summit, and I look forward to continuing these important conversations in the future.